Sit down, Sonny. Today, I will tell you a story about a brave soul whose name still brings tears of joy out of everyone's basement. One whose name still brings tears of nostalgia-laced fear in every personal computer. Crysis isn't just a video game, it's many things. To some, it's a friend. To some, it's an artist. To others, it's a benchmark for testing gaming PCs. So, you've got an RTX 4200 with Ryzen 69. Can it run Crysis?
Two hours later.
Apparently not. But, for all its bravado, is it actually fun? It's pretty fucking fun, I guess. So, what is Crysis exactly? It's a first-person action-adventure game made by Crytek. You know, the studio that just loves the letter Y for some unknown reason. The best way to describe Crysis would be that it's a Far Cry-like, taking elements from the original Far Cry while also adding some new things to mix the whole palette up and create a different, albeit familiar experience. The new things, or thing to be more specific, being the super advanced, super high-tech, super powerful, super everything nanosuit. Now, despite what this intro would have you believe, the nanosuit isn't quite the ultimate get-out-of-jail-free card as one might believe. Sure, you can certainly replicate everything you see in this intro in gameplay just fine, but you're just as likely to immediately get your arse handed to you if you are not careful, and that's something I quite like about Crysis 1's rendition of the suit over 2 and 3's. While those wholeheartedly embrace the idea of the suit essentially turning you into an unstoppable superhero, Crysis 1 treats it as a more modest advantage. You do have an edge over your enemies, but that doesn't mean you can absolutely steamroll them like an average Nord does his Dunmerry wife after getting home from work. Anyway, we'll get into the details over the actual functions of the suit later. For now, let's start from the beginning.
In the beginning.
After the intro, we get a brief cutscene about a weird structure accompanied by a distress call from a supposed international excavation team working on the remote Lingshan Islands in the Philippine Sea. The call mentions a North Korean incursion into the island, along with warnings about strange findings related to whatever they were excavating, foreshadowing things to come later. We then jump a week later as the United States sends in a Delta Force squad called Raptor Team for search and rescue. This is where we meet our main cast: Prophet, the squad leader, Jason Statham, Psycho, and of course the player character, John Crysis, aka Nomad.
Hey Nomad, you still with us?
All of them are pretty cool. Psycho is a standout. His tongue-in-cheek humor breathes some much-needed life into the shitestorm we get into later, and it blends perfectly with Nomad's more dry sense of humor. I also like that he's not just there for comic relief, as he can be just as hot-headed and serious when things really go bad. Prophet, on the other hand, is interesting. He clearly knows more about the danger at hand than he's willing to divulge, but he still cares about the well-being of his team given his reaction anytime they're in danger. He's just as unhappy about the cards he's being dealt with as the others, and he knows there's nothing he can do about it. Admittedly, he does become a lot more important in the later entries than here, but this still does a good job of setting up everything that's to come. And of course, Nomad himself is no far behind. Being the protagonist, he's really fun to control. He has enough personality and charm to be memorable while giving room for the player to inhibit themselves without being left in the dark. Both he and the player are on the same footing, and every revelation comes with as much a shock to you as it does to Nomad. His previously mentioned dry sense of humor coupled with his semi-silent tough guy act makes for a really compelling personality, as does his chemistry with the main cast.
If you get in trouble, let me know.
I'm always in trouble.
Oh, and there's two other members as well, but they die like 10 minutes into the game. There's not much to say about them. They literally exist just to build up the plot with their deaths. Now, one thing I really appreciate about this game is how everything happens from Nomad's perspective. In quite a stark contrast to Far Cry, which has a lot of normal third-person cutscenes,
This is Sparta!
here, apart from the intro and the ending, the game never leaves Nomad's eyes. Be it cutscenes, set pieces, mission briefings, everything is shown exclusively from his POV, which is honestly one of my favorite tropes in FPSs. It really feels immersive, like you really are John Crysis in the flesh. I mean, you're not, but it's the thought that counts. I know it's something quite common, but I still felt like pointing it out because I haven't done so in any of my prior videos. So, once we meet the team, we get some rough intel on the island situation. After the Korean People's Army walked in, they evacuated the entire population and seemingly took the excavation team from before hostage, so we had to search and rescue them. Jumping off the plane, despite a rough start,
What the hell? You see that? Nomad's in! He lost his chute! My chute's gone! My damn chute is gone! I've got no man, no reserves.
Keep it together, kid. You're over water. Your suit should absorb the impact. Nomad, what's your status?
I'm okay.
we managed to make it onto the island. As expected, the two squad members destined to die in horrific ways, and it becomes very clear right off the bat that there's clearly something way more dangerous here than the Koreans. Now, a complaint I've heard some lodge against this game is the story is mediocre, and I strongly disagree. Sure, it's not some groundbreaking Shakespearean literature, but that's not a bad thing. I mean, Shakespeare is pretty overrated anyway. The story is simple, well told, with good pacing and a mostly decent cast of likable characters. It builds up suspense and intrigue well enough, and it's more than enough entertaining to keep me hooked from start to finish. Moving on, the first couple missions are relatively laid back, intended to really weave you into the game systems in a natural way, but it also doesn't really hold your hand that much, and I really like that. The encounters at first are pretty small, letting you test everything in your arsenal before slowly increasing the challenge by introducing more enemies, bigger outposts, and more toys to play around with. There's a very clear rhythm to the combat that isn't hard to grasp but isn't easy to master either. And now that we're here, let's talk about the suit in detail. There's 4 core modes the suit has to offer: strength, armor, speed, and cloak, all of which are governed by your suit's energy, which is graciously displayed on your HUD above your health bar. Strength lets you become the Hulk, speed lets you become Sonic the Hedgehog, armor lets you soak up some damage before they affect your health, and cloak lets you, well, cloak. All of these may seem extremely overpowered, and they can be if used right, but like I previously said, they won't make you immortal. It is very easy to screw up, run out of suit charge, and get unceremoniously gunned down, so you need to use your brain. Cloak, for example, lets you go invisible, but it's also the only ability that drains your charge continuously, even if you aren't moving, which if you do, drains the energy even faster. So it's suitable for crossing small distances between cover, which can be used in a variety of ways, like distracting enemies by appearing one place, then cloaking and moving away, so you can get a jump on them. Even outside of cover, it's really useful in disorienting their aim, because the moment you cloak in front of them, they'll start randomly shooting at your last known position. It's also useful for simply sneaking into outposts and slowly taking everyone out without setting off any alarms or alerting anyone. Which is trickier because the game doesn't have any instant takedowns. And if you even so much as whistle in the cloak mode, it instantly drains all your energy and leaves you vulnerable. So you need to pick your cover properly and make sure you can hide right after shooting someone so as to not get spotted by the others. And if there's a cluster of enemies, you either need to kill all of them together as quick as possible or distract them and take them out one by one. That's more or less pretty much all there is to cloak. Now, speed.
Don't say it. Don't you
Maximum speed.
Speed lets you move around quicker than usual, and unlike cloak, it only drains energy if you sprint, which is quite useful because when you're sneaking around, even a small movement boost is quite helpful, crossing bigger distances quicker before you're spotted or if you don't have enough charge left for cloak. It is also very useful during combat because not only does it let you change or get into cover quicker without taking too much damage, it can also disorient enemies, which is really fun to play around with. It also speeds up some animations like ADSing and weapon switching. All in all, pretty useful. Armor is pretty self-explanatory. It lets you soak up more damage than you usually can. Mind you, it's not as powerful as later entries, so it's more a small bonus to give you a chance to move out of harm's way in time than continuously keep tanking damage like you're the fucking Terminator. It also more notably increases the speed with which your health regenerates. Finally, strength, which is more gimmicky.
Maximum strength.
I think it's meant primarily for melee players, which I am not. It also lets you jump a lot higher like your fucking Super Mario, as well as yeeting things with lethal amounts of force, including enemies. And it is admittedly quite fun to pull off. However, I personally never found as much use for these methods, but it does add some more options if you choose to use them, and it can be just as viable if utilized right. Although one big thing strength does offer that I find more useful is better recoil and sway control when firing guns, which is really useful when fighting enemies at range. So that's all the suit modes. I like that they offer a more balanced set of advantages and disadvantages, so you can't rely on just one or two aspects like later entries. As I said, you need to be more strategic in combining the various plus and minuses. Of course, if you stand in the open and try to fight a helicopter with just strength mode because of its recoil control, you'll be plowed harder than a Nord supremacist plows. Oh wait, I already made that joke. Fuck. Anyway, combine the powers properly and you get so many different ways to approach combat scenarios, which is further complemented by the brilliant map design and combat arenas. Whether you're in the vast open plains or deep in the jungle or interior locations, there's plenty of alternate routes, cover placements, weapon caches to suit any playstyle. Once again, the game never handholds you on what you can or cannot do. You'll only fail if you die on your own merit. Speaking of weapons, let's talk about them. There's a pretty healthy selection of toys for you to play around with, ranging from assault rifles to shotguns to SMGs to missile launchers. All of these are sequentially handed out to you the further you get to counter the better enemies that show up. However, that doesn't mean the guns you already have become useless the moment something new spawns in. Almost all of them have their unique place in the arsenal that doesn't get overshadowed by its contemporaries. For example, you start with a pistol and a SCAR. The SCAR is actually pretty damn good for a starting gun, however, it's limited by its low ammo reserves throughout the game, and especially the first act. That's where the FY71 comes in. It's not as good as the SCAR, however it has a consistent ammo source throughout the entire game, making it not only a great primary option in the first act, but also a reliable fallback option later on, if in any case your other guns run out. There's also incendiary ammo you can find, which while not as abundant as the normal ammo, does turn it into the best gun in the entire game. Then after the FY71, you get the shotgun, which is fucking beautiful. Easily one of the best video game shotguns in existence. It even has its own fucking soundtrack. Just look at it in action. get the SMG, which serves as an in-between of the assault rifles and shotgun. So all in all, you pretty much have a gun that complements almost any situation you might get yourselves in. The customization system is also pretty good. It's simple yet incredibly robust, letting you swap out scopes, barrel attachments and muzzle extensions on the spot, making sure the flow of the game isn't hampered as you make quick decisions as to what attachments you need in the heat of combat. Getting back to the story, we rescue one of the excavation team members from the KPA who tells us that there's something dangerous on the island. Yeah, I think we already know that part. And that she's CIA. Also, I love how they didn't even bother giving her a name. She's just called Hostage.
Now, say my name.
Hostage.
You're goddamn right.
Anyway, we rescue her, blow up some tanks, and link up with Prophet as Psycho goes to escort Miss Jane Hostage out of the island. Prophet tells us that the CIA have been tracking Rosenthal's work for a while.
His team discovered evidence of advanced technologies that predate man. We need to know what they found and why the Koreans are so determined to hide it.
Understood.
Before more can be said, however, Prophet himself gets kidnapped by that same creature we saw earlier, leaving Nomad all alone. Not to worry, however, because in comes Major fucking Strickland. This absolute Chad of a madman is easily the best character in the entire game. A true soldier that gives nothing but the absolute best to the task at hand and expects no less from his men.
Our position's been compromised. We're taking artillery fire from the harbor.
Lieutenant, I don't give a good goddamn about your problems. You will take out those AAs and you will hold that road. Understood?
Son of a bitch.
No matter what happens, he's always there to assist you in completing the mission whenever he can. Tanks, VTOLs, ghost rifles, infantry support, even his own life. Nothing is too big for him to supply for the mission. Legend has it that when he died, Jesus himself wept tears in the shape of M16s. Never again such a glorious hero. Oh, okay, enough glazing. Moving on. Clearing up a nearby KP outpost, we receive intel on where Rosenthal is being held and head out to rescue him. Although we reach there in time, the fossil his team excavated turns out to be extremely fatal, killing everyone except Nomad thanks to his suit. Before that happens, Rosenthal does tell us that the KPI is holding the rest of the team, including his daughter Helena, up on the mountains. So that's our next stop. The end of this mission also introduces the final tier of human enemies you will encounter in the game.
Strickland, you copy? I think these guys have nanosuits.
Well, I'll be damned. They aren't supposed to have that technology yet.
If it's any consolation, they look like cheap knockoffs.
And now that that's done, let's talk about them. As you might have guessed, the KPA are what you'll be facing for the first half of the game. So apparently in the Crysis universe, instead of the funny nuke man, his brother took over North Korea when their dad died in 2011. And within 9 years, he somehow managed to turn its entire economy around to make it one of the wealthiest, most technologically advanced nations in the world. Right. Now, around 2019, they had got whiff of the artifacts Rosenthal's team had begun to dig up. After getting intel that there's more on the Lingshan Islands, the events of the game happen. Gameplay-wise, the KPA is pretty fun to fight. Their general AI and pathfinding might be a bit...
Maximum armor. Cloak engaged.
rudimentary, but they make up for it with all the different types of tactics and variants they have. For example, campers stay at a distance. If a place is not secured, as in you're detected nearby, they'll always flee to faraway positions to entrench themselves better. Flankers will rush. They're the most aggressive enemy type, using mobility as their main tactic than cover. They usually circle around you, so you won't notice them easily, which lets them catch you off guard when they come from behind you. There's a couple more like leaders, snipers, vehicular ones like boats, cars, helicopters, which I could talk about all day, but I'll keep it short because I don't want to spend another 8 months editing this video. Anyway, each enemy variant also has two sub-variants, light and heavy. As the name suggests, light enemies have little to no armor and can be easily dispatched with a couple shots. Heavies wear thicker armors, making it harder to kill them. And like I said, the way these enemies are slowly introduced is tied to the rhythm of the overall game and its weapon progression. As you head further in, the more heavily equipped the enemies get to counter your access to better weapons. Something else that really complements the general combat that I didn't mention before is the destructible environments. Not everything is destructible of course, but there's enough to make it an engaging mechanic. Sniper nest causing problems? Tear it down. Enemies taking cover behind the shack? Blow it to smithereens. Outpost near a gas tank? Light that match and enjoy the fireworks. But remember, fellow Crysister, just as you can use destruction against enemies, the same can also be used against you. Stay in a shack too long, the KPA will blow it to smithereens. Stay on a sniper rest too long, it will be ripped apart. Trudge near a gas station, it will... You get the gist. All in all, they're pretty fun to fight. Moving on, the next couple missions is where the game peaks, as the US forces decide to launch a full-scale war against the KPA forces. After building it up throughout the entire first half, everything the game has introduced up to this point is brought together and scaled up to 11, and my god is it absolutely fucking amazing to witness. And the best part is none of it is linear. All of these sequences have the same level of open approach as any prior mission with multiple alternate paths to complete each objective, which makes them all the more fun. And now that the maps are even more open, you have even more opportunities than before. By land, by sea, by forest, on foot, during the tank column section, it does not fucking matter. You can do whatever you want. It feels incredibly immersive and truly feels like you're in an active war zone instead of a simple shooting gallery that's just meant to show off all these set pieces like a certain other game that loves doing all the time. These levels manage to do both, give you a lot of freedom and show off scripted set pieces wherever they can. Now, I do have one small criticism about these missions, which is the very small amount of infantrymen on your side. You fight hordes of KPA infantry, yet the amount of US infantry at a time is very limited. It's not that big of a deal, but I do wish they appeared a bit more frequently around the other parts of the maps. Still, good missions, 9 out of 10. Now that the game has peaked, there's only one way to go from here. Let's get into that, shall we? So, once we reach the mountains, we come face to face with General Keong, the leader of the KPA forces on the island. I didn't mention him much before because there really isn't much to mention, like at all. he's about as generic as a bad guy can get. More power, more temple, I'll kill you for disagreeing. I'll open this suspiciously evil looking door that clearly isn't hiding something dangerous inside. Anyway, he opens the door leading to massive seismic activities. Helena manages to escape, but sadly Nomad himself is trapped.
Nomad! Read me! Nomad!
With no way out, we have to venture into the recently opened structure. Now, contrary to popular opinion, I quite like this mission. For one, I think it does a brilliant job setting up the new enemies you'll be fighting for the second half of the game. The atmosphere here is absolutely stunning. The eerie loneliness as you're completely cut off from Strickland's forces, combined with the foreboding and oppressive nature of these distinctly alien structures, really makes you feel like you shouldn't be here. This is their domain and they're slowly waking up while you're helpless to do anything about it. I also love how gravity is disabled in here, so it appears almost oceanic, like you're sinking deeper and deeper into the abyss. The music as well does a masterful job selling that atmosphere, as it takes quite a darker tone compared to the relatively upbeat and heroic vibe from before. Now again, this sequence isn't without its issues. Like I said, there's no gravity, so the enemies you fight here are all floating around. If you didn't bring a shotgun from before entering the place, you're in for a rather difficult time, because trying to aim with an automatic weapon as these buggers keep fizzling in and out at max speed is a wee bit difficult and not in a fun way. Still, it's not that bad, and I quite like this mission, as I said. Anyway, once you get out, a massive wave of energy fizzles out of the mountains as the creatures we kept seeing earlier all come out en masse. These are the Seth, alien creatures that arrived on this island more than 2 million years ago and have seemingly been laying dormant for a long time. Now they've woken up and start attacking everything in sight. This begins the second half of the game that is widely divisive, to say the least. Many claim these last couple missions are to Crysis what Zen was to OG Half-Life. A mismanaged set of levels with an enemy faction that's so drastically different from what came before it completely ruins the flow of the game, and in general just aren't fun to fight. It might surprise you or not, but I actually quite disagree with that sentiment. Yeah, the levels aren't as good as what came before, but they aren't bad either. In fact, like I said, the game peaked during the assault. You really can't go anywhere but down after that. It's not like you can stay at the top forever. So the alien enemies come in two primary shapes. Scouts, which are essentially reskinned helicopters with more health, and troopers, small ground units which more or less act like cover soldier variants. That's pretty much it. There are two more, but they're more set PC boss fights than actual enemies you fight. So yeah, pretty limited compared to the soldiers, but I think it's enough to cover these linear levels. Having more variants would have been a wasted effort because these maps aren't open enough for all their tactics to really shine through. Also, I disagree that they're too drastically different to fight than the soldiers, because pretty much every tactic you used before works here too. Visually, their designs are really stellar as well. These squid-like tentacles, the almost aquatic movement pattern, it's really unique as far as sci-fi aliens go. All in all though, I do wish there was a bit more to them, but what's there isn't bad. Now, as for the level design itself, the extreme linearity does feel rather abrupt. But despite my appreciation of the open-ended first half of the game, I do think the linearity works in these particular levels given the context and pacing of the story. The tension of the aliens driving us all out of the island wouldn't be the same if you were given freedom to slowly take everyone out like before. Moving on, this is also the place where Prophet comes back. Somehow he survived the alien onslaught and has rigged this beautiful infinite ammo alien minigun for us to blast everything with. You're a fucking gem, Prophet, you know that? So after escorting him for a bit and rescuing Helena along the way again, we reach the evacuation LZ. And Strickland sacrifices himself to give our VTOL time to escape as a massive alien creature tears through the entire remaining US forces left on the island. Boy, I sure hope that thing doesn't come back anytime later. Thanks to Strickland, we make it off the island safe and sound. That is, if you're playing on consoles. No, on PC, before you make it out, there's a flying segment and it's not good. The VTOL feels awful to control and I have no idea why. The other vehicles work so smooth, yet this thing pilots like a fucking fridge with table fans for propulsion. And if flying it wasn't bad enough, you have to fight using it too, which feels even worse. The bullets barely have any impact, and just forget about using missiles. You'll never hit anything unless you have like godlike aiming abilities. And if you get too low so as to even touch the ground, the damn thing just explodes. Why? Is the ground made of fucking lava or something? The only positive thing about this section is the music, which is phenomenal.
Ready for takeoff. Clear the airspace, Nomad. We gotta get to the birds on the ground. Over. Good job, Nomad. You're next. Got it clear. All units, airspace is clear. Clear takeoff immediately. Keep it steady. It's like Tornado Alley out here. Stay clear of the ice. 01865, get down there and make a pickup. Nomad, control the skies. Keep us clear.
Anyway, we make it to the USS Constitution under command of one Admiral Morris. They're deciding what to do with the island after they've viewed the footage from Nomad's suit that he captured inside the alien nexus. There's only one possible solution. Press the big red button and cook the place. God bless thermonuclear warheads. Helena, however, believes it to be a mistake as the aliens seemingly feed on energy. A nuke might just give them enough energy to break free from the island entirely and wreak havoc. Morrison, however, is determined to follow through with the plan because no one doubts the fucking President of the United fucking States of America. When is this game set again?
Oh.
Anyway, deflecting from the main events for a while, Prophet is determined to go back to the island, believing he needs to put a stop to the aliens himself, regardless of what Morrison does. So he heads off, taking the infinite ammo alien minigun with him. Nomad himself is outfitted with some special tech Helena came up with that could help defeat the set. Speaking of Helena, she is also the final main cast member of the game, which does make it surprising how late she shows up proper. Now, while I do think she needed some more screen time to flesh her out more compared to the rest of the cast, she is still a good character, with a decent amount of banter with everyone else. Other than that, they also bring up a tech cannon, which will certainly not come in handy later. With that done and our suit patched, we head to the bridge, just in time to watch Prophet steal a VTOL and head back to the island. All lines crossed, Morrison is determined to launch his nuclear strike no matter what. And so the big red button is pushed.
I hope you're right about this.
You, me, and the rest of the planet.
Ending the Ceph menace once and for all, and everyone lived happily ever after. Sorry. The nuke hits but does absolutely fuck all. Instead, the Ceph absorb all the energy they need to expand the ice sphere all the way throughout the island, and a massive wave of Ceph forces attack the USS Constitution along with its entire escort fleet. and the weakest portion of the game begins. I know I said I don't hate the aliens, but this mission really isn't designed in a way that complements the alien enemies all that well. For starters, the Constitution itself is almost comically small, which really stands in stark contrast to the big open maps of the islands. Even at its most linear sequences, the maps there were big enough to give you enough room to move around and maintain a sense of scale. This mission is literally 15 minutes of corridor shooting, and because of the small map size, a lot of your suit powers just become redundant here. Strength isn't as useful anymore because there's very little verticality, and most combat scenarios happen at close range, so you won't need recoil control. You may try to use it when you're fighting Ceph scouts with your minigun, but it drains the suit energy way too fast to be actually useful. And since the alien enemies don't require strength grabs to fully die like the KPS soldiers, you don't need them for grabs either. You can just do it without it. Speed is also severely handicapped thanks to the limited open areas. The place where it's the most useful is on the top deck as you're running around grabbing ammo to fight all the Ceph scouts. Cloak is useful in some areas but a lot less effective because there's very few alternate paths for you to circumvent enemies. Armor is the only mode that's consistently useful here because most of the combat is clearly meant to be taken head on, and you'll need that health regen speed a lot more than anything else. Now, while the interior portion of this mission is just mediocre, the top deck section is on a whole other level of bullshittery. These sections involve going out in the open and fighting hordes upon hordes of Ceph scouts charging in from the island. Now, to give it some points, the flight deck is more open, giving you more room to move around, but there's just one small issue. There's barely any fucking cover. These chest-high jets do absolutely fuck all against flying enemies that can simply zigzag over you and continue shooting from all directions. And there's just way too many of these damn things thrown at you at once. To make matters worse, these scouts also have two new attacks now. One just freezes you, leaving you vulnerable, where you have to mash A and D to get free or you'll die. And another that just insta-kills you if you so much as lightly graze past its area of effect. And the cherry on top of it all? Remember, the scouts explode when they die. Imagine that, only instead of one or two, there's 50 billion of them and they constantly keep falling right next to you, forcing you to get out of cover and get shot at even more. It's painful. This mission is painful, especially on Delta difficulty, which increases the time it takes for your health and suit charge to regenerate. All of it topped off with a boss fight against the hunter from before again. It's fine, nothing to write home about. It's certainly not as bad as all these Ceph scout charges from before, but it does bring back Helena's idea from earlier as she uses the modifications made to Nomad's suit to disable its shields, letting you damage it. Also, funny thing is, if any of the other soldiers survive this part of the mission, they automatically die because the next section has to be done alone. It's fucking hilarious just watching them all collectively ragdoll. Anyway, with everyone dead, Psycho and Helena show up with their VTOL and try to collect Nomad before...
Leave me! Get out of here now!
It's never gonna happen, mate.
We're not going without you.
Go! I can take this thing down!
Not without my help.
Are you crazy? Just go!
This is it, the final boss fight. And it's pretty cool. You need to destroy these turrets that the Ceph warship has, after which Psycho gets the VTOL closer and Helena uses Nomad's suit to disable its shield once again, letting you knock out its cannons with the tech cannon. It's not quite a health-based boss fight as you have to rely on these gimmicks to take it down, but that's fine. For a final fight, I'm fine with it being a flashy spectacle than some absurd bullet sponge that takes 50 million shots to die. So, once both its cannons are knocked out, it starts dry humping the entire Constitution. Fuck, that sounds weird out of context. Anyway, as it does, it reveals a hatch in its belly. Destroy it, nuke it, watch the fireworks. Warship destroyed, Nomad escapes onto the VTOL just in the nick of time as it fully plows into the Constitution and sinks it entirely. Moving on, Psycho receives a signal from Prophet. The nuke apparently didn't kill him. Hooray! So our three musketeers set course for his location, intent on continuing the fight and destroying the theft once and for all. I sure hope the next game won't completely abandon this hook and half the cast won't be unceremoniously killed off in a comic. So that was Crysis. Despite most of the game's popularity coming from its breathtaking visuals at the time, I think gameplay-wise it deserves just as much praise. Taking an already fantastic concept and iterating upon it in such a unique way is exactly what the genre of games need to keep things fresh. And seeing as Ubisoft is intent on not doing anything even remotely unique with the Far Cry franchise anymore, the cry for a Crysis is all the more strong right now. Despite being nearly 20 years old, it still holds up remarkably well, and it's still an absolute blast to play through, despite some noticeable jank and flaws, especially in the later half of the game. The level design in it has this timeless feel to it that no matter how much time passes, it'll never feel stale or old. And in the end, beyond graphics or fidelity, that's really what stands tall about Crysis. That's not to say the visuals of the game have aged poorly, oh no, the game still looks amazing for the most part. Despite its emphasis on photorealism, it still manages to retain a distinct identity with the way it uses its color palette and environment design. Now, I originally wanted to make a segue here and talk about the remaster that came out 5 years ago, given the fact that recently the original game was generously nuked off of Steam in favor of it. But in all honesty, the video is already getting too long and I don't have much interest in it. Long story short, it's not bad, but it's somehow way buggier than the original, and I'm not a big fan of some of the things it did. Most notably the oversaturated colors that make it look more like the original Far Cry than Crysis. Would I recommend it over the original? Absolutely not. Would I recommend trying it out after you've already played the original? Sure, why not? And that's about the gist of it. Now, if only Crytek would stop having a fucking heart attack every 2 years and start making that damn fourth game. Thank you all for watching. Like, share and subscribe if you like my videos. And as always, I'll see you later.